Hey everybody, welcome back to the Menschwarmers. I'm James. I'm here with my friend Gabe. Gabe, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. It's been a long time. We sort of had an episode off to the, I guess, the secular Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, that's right. A little break around the winter holidays, the statutory holidays at least, and New Year's. And
I don't recognize them as holidays to me.
we've recharged our batteries and we're ready for a fun new season of the Menschwarmers. I guess we could call this like season 3, if you consider
Yeah.
the old newspaper was season 1 or so, and then when we came back last winter spring, that was like season 2, and now it's season 3.
And we're saying this, we're recording this podcast on the eve of the LPGA season starting tomorrow.
Oh, that's exciting stuff.
There you go. We're in time with them.
So season 3, bring back some old characters, resolve some plot lines from previous years, solve some cliffhangers. And
are there
and
any cliffhangers of who may or may not be Jewish?
Oh, good question.
We can bring into season 3.
Good question. I think that's like the biggest cliffhanger we have is like we say like we'll have to look into that and then just promptly forget about it and never return to it. Anyways, we thought we would start off this year of 2022 and this new season 3, with a look ahead to this year and talk not just about things that are going on, although we'll talk about that a little bit, but things to get excited about. We are always on the lookout for the newest and biggest stories in the Jewish sports world, and we want to try and get ahead of that as much as we can. And we want to give our listeners a little bit of insight into what they can look forward to for the year 2022.
Absolutely. We also have sort of, I would like to bring some early news. The first thing, this is actually the weekend of our producer Michael Freeman's birthday.
Oh, wow.
So it's our first Jewish sports story of the year. It's a big happy birthday to producer Michael Freeman.
And Gabe, since we last spoke, you've started your paternity leave from your other job.
I'm a full-time stay-at-home. I don't have another job, but no, I'm kidding. I do have another job, but I'm staying home, and I'm a full-time dad right now.
Yeah, nice that you're still able to take time away from parenting to do the podcast.
You know what? The kid goes to bed before the time we're recording this. So when the boy is not in my view, I am all podcast all the time.
I feel like the real peek behind the curtain is the revelation that we taped this at like 9:30 at night after our children have gone to bed, and like the only time that we can spare.
Exactly.
We had the rare experience of hearing Michael's child in the background because he's in mountain time and his kid's still up. Otherwise, we're just the dads trying to jam out after the kids go to bed quietly in the basement.
Absolutely. Having our cool dad time. This is big dad energy, just getting on the horn and yammering about Jews.
So the first big 2022 story I want to talk about that thing to look forward to is, I think, really one of the first big sporting events of the calendar year every year. Is concurrent going on right now, and that's the Australian Open. And that's right. The story I guess I want to talk about is
big
Jewish tennis. Yeah, a Jewish tennis breakout. Exactly. So just to run down sort of the list, these are people we've talked about before, people we're going to talk about again. On the men's side, Diego Schwartzman, currently ranked 13th in the world, actually playing right now as we're recording this. So we don't know if he's on to the third round or not. But the short king, Diego Schwartzman, looking for continued success. He is really poised to make a breakthrough. Denis Shapovalov, the Tel Aviv born, Canadian raised, the sort of the polar opposite of Schwartzman. Instead of swarthy and short, he is tall and blonde and Canadian, very pale. But again, also ranked 14th. He's ranked 14th in the world. Aslan Karatsev, the sort of breakthrough Russian Israeli tennis player who had an amazing run at the Australian Open last year, ranked 18th in the world. These are all guys who are in striking distance.
So we're 99% sure that he's not Jewish, but tomorrow, I guess we're recording this on Wednesday, the 19th of January. Tomorrow, he's facing, I guess we would call him Mike Jacobs All-Star Riley Opelka, mostly his name, and that he wears a chai.
Yeah.
Even though he is not Jewish.
Although he is coached.
Shapovalov is playing Opelka tomorrow.
Right. And we've looked into
Thursday,
this.
the 20th.
We looked into this before. We don't believe Riley Opelka is Jewish. But anyways, those are three men all in the top 20. One of those guys is going to win a tournament this year. I don't think we should be surprised if we see some of them in Grand Slam semifinals or finals, and even winning. So that's my big pitch for 2022. I think to keep an eye on is a real Jewish tennis breakthrough. On the women's side,
I think we got to look at the ladies circuit too.
Yeah, I think the biggest contender is Camilla Giorgi, who won the Canadian Open last year. The Italian player is, ranked in the 30s, I believe now, or 40s. She is on to the third round of the Australian Open as well. She's facing world number one Ashley Barty. So, this will be a huge test at a big venue, facing the world number one. If she could pull that off, that would be an amazing start to the 2022 tennis season. But I think
Camilla Giorgi also she's known for a very I guess I would say outlandish fashion sense, which is nice that she's making her impact that way.
Yeah, she is definitely someone to watch. Definitely, she is a little bit older. She's 30 years old, maybe past what we would typically think of as the peak, but she won a tournament last year. She won her first, 1,000 level tournament last year. She is someone who's going to impress. She's going to win some big matches this year.
Did we ever figure out because there was a lot of debate over it, but did we ever figure out if Elena Svitolova was Jewish?
I think the answer, the jury is still out on this. Nobody seems to have just come out and asked her, which is, I know how we got the Camilla Giorgi answer last year, which is that somebody just, we may have instigated someone to just come out and ask her, but we'll see if that happens. And Elena Svitolina, as far as we know, may or may not be Jewish. And I think she's ranked in top 20 right now. So definitely someone who, sure, root for her. No harm in rooting for her. But anyways, just the tennis on the forefront. That's my big thing to lead off. And it's starting right now. It's the dead of winter here, but upside down land in Melbourne, it's already summertime. So that's the first big thing to watch. Gabe, do you have a 2022 storyline that you're keeping track of that you're looking forward to?
I've got a couple. We can stick in sort of the country club world,
sure,
and move on to the golf side. A golfer we follow, just to bring in the connection. We mentioned Riley Opelka. His coach is a man by the name of Jay Berger, who is definitely Jewish, and his son Daniel Berger enters the 2022 golf season ranked, I think, roughly 20th in the world.
Definitely in the top 20 now.
He's 19th in the world. Where he might be the highest ranked Jewish golfer in a very long time. Berger, fresh off a win in the last year, won the AT&T Pebble Beach tournament. Didn't really contend in majors as much as we had hoped, but had a great show.
He did have he had a top 10 at the PGA, I think, and maybe the British as well.
He was on the winning Ryder Cup team,
right?
Where he was, I guess, the first Jew since Corey Pavin to win a Ryder Cup. On the lady side, Morgan Pressel, who we'll talk about in a minute, has won a couple of Solheim Cups. But Daniel Berger is a Jewish guy to watch on the PGA Tour. He's looking forward to contending at a couple of majors this year and hopefully getting another win after winning each of the last two seasons. Similarly, on the men's side is Max Homa, who also has a win already this season, and looks to get another one too. He'll be back at his second Masters and hasn't done so great at tournaments yet, at major tournaments yet. But, we've mentioned speaking to him on the show before, and we're really hoping he's having a good season, and hopefully we get to see them if there is a tournament in Canada this year.
Right. Homa won the first tournament of the 2021-2022 season, the Fortinet Championship.
That's right. Something called the Fortinet.
Yeah. Something called the Fortinet Championship. It's up at Silverado Country Club in somewhere in Northern California.
I think it used to be the Safeway Open.
Right. It used to be the Safeway, and they moved it to California. And it's up in Napa. So anyways, he's had two wins in the last year. Homa's a guy who's, just sort of reaching his peak, I think, in terms of his ability here, just being able to finish. Obviously, he had that win last year at the Genesis Open at the Riviera, his home, sort of his home course as someone who grew up in LA. And he is a guy who's going to be there on a lot of Sundays. I think Berger is a guy who is completely dialed in. and he is going to be in the top. He's going to make top 10s of majors this year. He is going to be a contender at majors. Like, you're going to see him at the top of the leaderboard at one of these early majors, and he's going to really surprise a lot of people for someone who's not, not necessarily as flashy or as well known, who's, but really had a meteoric rise in the last couple of years. Those two guys are the last year when they won their the AT&T and the Genesis, we sort of reported at the time it was the first time that two Jewish players had won in back-to-back weeks. And, that's sort of maybe not surprising. There haven't been that many great Jewish golfers. Okay, whatever. But that really shows you, where we're at in terms of there being Jewish golf at a high level, or golfers who are Jewish at a really high level in the PGA Tour. And again, those guys are guys to watch. They're going to win tournaments this year. You're going to be reading about them.
And if we have the same approach to our law of averages, as you see, I know tennis seems to be a little more top heavy, but we've got two Jewish male golfers in the top 40 worldwide, each of whom who have won at least a tournament in the last year, as well as and we've got just as many tennis players in the top 40 on the men's and women's side. So, strange things can happen. Anti-vaxxers can get denied from whatever country tournament they're in. And a guy like Denis Shapovalov or Aslan Karatsev can make a really serious run.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing I want to highlight
just before we go,
I want
to go on to the LPGA Tour side, which you mentioned earlier, starts this weekend. There's 3 women to watch on the LPGA Tour. They're sort of American golf legend, or Jewish golf legend, Morgan Pressel, who's in her, entering her mid 30s, came in 4th in the 2019 British Open and hasn't had a lot of success since then. But she's been on tour since she was 14 years old, or 15 years old, I should say. And she's been, she's been grinding on tour for a long time. Hopefully she can get back in her winning ways and win a second major as well. There's 2 young golfers, Letitia Beck, who is Israeli, who is kosher and sort of an observant Jew from her time at Duke and her time on tour now. She continues to ride on tour, and hopefully she gets a couple of W's this year, sort of middling. And then there's a very intriguing rookie, Elizabeth Sokol, who's a Californian, ranked 80th in the world, who can make some noise on tour this year. She's only 27, I should say. I'm sorry. But, the peak can come at any time, and she's looking to play this weekend. So let's see. Hopefully she can get some W's soon. She's got 4 career top 10s in 2 years on tour. So hopefully she can get some good W's.
That's great. That's really exciting. I mean, I will admit to not watching as much LPGA action as I should, but as
fabulous.
As the father of a daughter, who I would very much like to be into golf someday, so she can take me out onto the course. I think we got to have some LPGA on in the background. I think so. Michelle
Wee is a really excellent Instagram follow, so right. I would recommend you get on that soon too. But I like watching any golf, but
I did watch a fair amount of it. I did watch the Olympic.
Fantastic.
I did watch the Olympic women's golf, and that was pretty great.
Yeah, it's. We can talk about the tournaments this week. Brooke Henderson, our sort of Canadian hero, is back in action, playing in a pro-am with Vince Carter today.
Oh, wow.
So there's some good Canadian excitement.
That's great. The next thing I wanted to highlight was just the possibility in 2022 of a 4th straight Jewish Super Bowl champion. So as we're taping this, we're coming into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, and there are 2 Jews who are still active in the playoffs, who have a chance of making it to the Super Bowl. And I think both of them play for teams that they could be facing each other for all we know. So the first is Ali Marpet, who won last year. He plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was pretty important part of their victory. He's a guard, so he's not the flashiest position. He's not someone whose name you're going to hear called a lot. I think for guards, it's sort of like if you don't hear their name being called, it means they didn't do anything wrong. But he's a guy who grew up in suburban New York. Went to Hobart College, not a really well-known football school, but he's really made a impressive career for himself now. 6 years or 7 years, I think, in the league. And with the ring, and continuing to start game in, game out.
Was he the one who missed Hanukkah with the game on Hanukkah with an abdominal injury, which I think we chose to believe was eating too many latkes?
No, I believe that was Anthony Ferkser, who's the other Jewish player who's still around. who, similarly grew up in Manalapan Township, New Jersey, pretty, suburban kid, went to Harvard, so no slouch in that regard, and got drafted went undrafted in 2017, but stuck it out and made it initially as a New York Jet, and is now playing for the Tennessee Titans. So he's been with the Tennessee Titans. He is playing a fair chunk as their tight end. He's their number 2 tight end, basically. But he has gotten into a lot of games. He is someone who I think can have a big impact, especially, as a blocker. Not going to get his name called a ton, but, he's going to have a few receptions every game. I think he had 3, 4, 5 receptions in plenty of the games this year. But he is a name to watch out for. The Tennessee Titans are surprisingly the number 1 seed in the AFC. They very easily could, they probably will beat the Bengals this week, and they're going to be 1 game away from the Super Bowl after that. So, he's someone to keep an eye on. The previous 3 seasons had Ali Marpet last year, and 2 years ago was Julian Edelman, and 2 years ago was Mitchell Schwartz, and 3 years ago was Julian Edelman,
Super Bowl MVP Julian Edelman.
That's right. So this is a long tradition now, 3 straight years of a Jew winning the Super Bowl, and we'd like to keep that tradition going into Super Bowl 46. I think this is. Do we know which Super Bowl this is?
I thought we were past 50 now. I thought we had Super Bowl L already.
No, Super Bowl L is definitely in the future.
No, this is LVI. We're at 56 now. Super Bowl LVI. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
What's the gematria of LVI?
We'll have to compare the name of Anthony Ferkser and or Ali Marpet if they've reached the Super Bowl versus the gematria of the LVI Super Bowl. We'll have to get our best Talmudic and Kabbalistic scholars on that if those guys make the Super Bowl.
I'm sure they would. But before we do, we've got a huge, sort of a really big story coming up, which is the Olympics. Before we get to that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back shortly.
And we're back. Gabe, you said that you want to talk about the Olympics. Didn't we just have an Olympics? Is it really Olympic season already?
They come but once an Olympiad. Twice an Olympiad now, I guess. An Olympiad is a thing of 4 years, and COVID has made it weird. It looked like this one was going to get postponed for a while.
I guess it's the
Beijing 2022 Olympics.
I guess this is the way it used to be, right? Because they used to do the Winter and Summer Olympics in the same year.
They did.
And it must have just been exhausting for the people who covered it and had to go to like Seoul for 3 weeks and then like Norway
Innsbruck,
for 3 weeks.
Austria. Yeah. I'm heading from Chamonix down to Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure. But now they've split them up. But because of COVID, the 2020 Olympics happened in 2021, even though they were still called the 2020 Olympics.
Right.
And we're now at the 2022 Olympics, which are happening as planned in China. We should probably start by saying that China hosting another Olympics is probably not a generally good thing for the overall world. The Olympics, while wonderful to watch, have some ethical issues going on with them, especially in a country like China, which has some ethical issues going on with all of its, production and organization. That said, we can still celebrate the Jewish people that are having a great time while doing it and making us proud. So there's a few we want to highlight. One of them, we're not quite positive if he's going to appear at the Olympics this time. Qualification has been a bit of a mess, but I want to bring everyone's attention to the Israeli skeleton and bobsled athlete, AJ Edelman. He is an American-born Jewish Israeli of Israeli heritage. His brother, Alex Edelman, you might have heard of him, is a popular comedian on TikTok and YouTube. But AJ has taken his degrees from MIT and Yale and decided to apply them to strapping some knives to his chest and throwing himself down a tube of ice, which I find, as Jerry Seinfeld says, it's one of those sports where the whole goal is not to die.
Yeah, he's a real sledder. He's a multidisciplinary sledder. It's pretty amazing. You just strap some skates to that guy's chest and he's good to go.
He's good to go. He just throws himself down the ice. He's, people like to joke, at least I like to joke, that Israelis are a little bit like sort of like a screw loose, just sort of as a personality trait of being an Israeli person. If you've ever tried to wait in a line in Israel, you can understand that they don't really operate in the same way as the rest of the Western world. Right. But I think that this man, with his highfalutin, spectacularly impressive university degrees from MIT and Yale, is also a sliding sports athlete. Really shows the Israeli attitude of fuck it. So we're exciting to watch AJ. Whether or not he appears in the Olympics, he's a great story to follow throughout his career, and it's really impressive what he's done. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to segue to another sort of sliding sport in a way. Talk about our aptly named Coloradan Jewish heroes, siblings Taylor and Ariel Gold.
Yeah, so Ariel Gold was the won bronze in Pyeongchang at the Olympics for the half pipe, I believe. She's not returning. I think she's retired or sort of semi-retired. And her older brother is Taylor Gold, who is going to be making the Olympics and competing for the U.S. team. So definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Are they the gnarliest Jews we can think of? Like the true radical Jews?
I think that's the raddest we can get is on the half pipe. That's pretty cool.
Jews and skateboarding in the Summer Olympics.
That's true.
Like pretty rad.
Maybe there was a surfer or two, which is pretty. I feel like surfing's more gnarly than rad, though, right?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Tubular even.
Oh, surfing is definitely tubular.
Yeah,
it's definitely. But right now when you Google coolest Jewish person, and this is not a joke, I shit you not, the top two results are Benjamin Netanyahu and Alan Dershowitz. So we gotta get on Google to replace those horrible ghouls with the Gold siblings.
The algorithm is failing us on that.
Much radder than the Dersh and Thomas Friedman.
So Taylor Gold returning to the Olympics after competing in Sochi. Definitely wish him luck. A few other people to highlight. David Warsofsky is going to be on the scrappy ragtag U.S. hockey team. As most people know, the NHL players are no longer going to be going to the Olympics for a number of reasons. So, sort of the best and brightest of the minor leagues and professional leagues around the world are being recruited to fill out the rosters. And a few Israeli athletes as well. Israel tends to send a few athletes to Winter Olympics, typically in skiing in skating, figure skating. And there's also a short track speed skater, Vladislav Baikonov, who is going to be competing in a few short track events as well. So this is going to be his third Olympics. Short track is a discipline that often has weird outcomes. So very possible that, we see him in the finals, or we see him, maybe even on the podium at the Olympics.
That's very exciting. Another person we'd like to mention is U.S. figure skater Jason Brown, who is proudly Jewish, recently featured from our friends in Alma magazine about, he is figure skating, I think, is one of the more artistic pursuits that might speak to a little more of the Jewish sensibility than sort of one of the brute strength, or, as we said earlier, goal is not to die event. But when Jason Brown was 20, he won his first Olympic medal and is about to compete in his third Olympics. So big mazel tov and a good luck to Jason on that.
I would say he's almost male winter version of Ali Reisman. As she, did her gymnastics routine to Hava Nagila. He has done routines to the theme from Schindler's List, which is dark, but, a moving piece of music. And, I don't know if that's going to be part of his Olympic routine, but definitely got to watch.
I think there's probably a more uplifting Steven Spielberg theme song to do your music to.
I think Jurassic Park is obviously the answer of, the theme from Jurassic Park would be great. Skating song. I'm sure someone's done that. Yeah.
My good friend of mine walked down the aisle to that song. So I think that he is Jewish. So I think that would be a very good song for it. But that's John Williams. John Williams isn't Jewish, is he?
I don't believe he is.
I don't believe so. So we got to find a Hans Zimmer. If he can come,
Right.
if Jason Brown could do a thing to Inception and every one of his triple axles could be on time with like a blah, that would be really, really good. Jason, if you're listening, here's a free tip for you.
Let's leave it there for the Olympics for now. I should tell everybody two things. One, we're going to be focusing on Olympics coverage much over for the next few months, as the sort of doldrums of the sports here, as basketball and hockey round into their, third quarter, and the NFL comes to an end. There's not much else going on. So the Olympics are definitely going to be on our forefront. We'll be highlighting Jewish athletes, hopefully talking to a few of them, and hopefully talking about the political side as well, because, we've been approached by people who have been focused on the Uyghur genocide and the Jewish angle on that, protesting the fact that these Olympics are going on altogether. And, that's something we've talked about in the past in the Olympics. We had Andrew Marinus on, who wrote a book about the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. And I think it's going to be something that's on the forefront of Jewish viewers, the Olympics. One more thing I want to mention as a, upcoming storyline, that is a big one for 2022 is about quarterback JT Daniels. So he was the starting quarterback at Georgia before he got injured this year. He was still on the championship winning team that won the national championship last week, but he was the backup for Stetson Bennett, the fourth, who has decided to return to Georgia and is going to continue to be their starter. JT Daniels
replacing a Jewish person with somebody named Stetson Bennett the fourth. Like that sounds quite predictable.
The most country club Goyish name there could possibly be. Stetson Bennett the fourth, just all time name. But anyways, the point is JT Daniels, whose mother is Jewish, I think identifies as Jewish. He is going into the transfer window. Don't know where he's going to go yet. Possibly
the transfer portal.
school.
Entering the transfer portal.
Yeah, and this time he can do it. He was previously at USC, then he went to Georgia. Now he could transfer again because he's a graduate transfer, so he doesn't have to sit out a year. And he is like fifth on the list right now in terms of odds for the Heisman. He's like a 20-1 Heisman favorite. He is definitely a guy who is going to be on a top, a team that's in the top 10, like starting the year, or top 20 starting the year. If he can stay healthy, can really have a shot at the Heisman, and probably is our best Jewish quarterback prospect since Josh Rosen.
Has there been a Jewish Heisman winner yet?
There has never been a Jewish Heisman winner.
Yeah. So he would be the first. That'd be very exciting. I think Josh Rosen may have been a finalist.
I don't think he was. I don't think he was, because that would have been the Baker Mayfield year. Yeah.
Right. So maybe not.
I don't know if Josh Rosen was, but obviously he was a big quarterback prospect. We'll see if JT Daniels can do that as well. That's something that would be interesting, and something to watch out for in the 2022 college football season.
Entering the transfer portal. Is that the bar mitzvah of a Jewish college athlete?
I think that's right. Gabe, before we go, anything else you want to mention? Obviously there's thousands of things that'll come up between now and the end of the year. Chess, auto racing, F1's coming back. There's some Jewish competitors there, right?
Looking for another big year from Lance Stroll. He sort of took a step back in his development, unfortunately, but we're cheering him on another year on Aston Martin. Lance, hopefully he'll get to race in Canada for the first time in a long time since he's, sort of had his breakout, had a couple of podiums. He hasn't been in Canada since that's happened. So that'll be great to see him, as well as his dad there, two Jewish Montrealers as well. Israeli driver Roy Nissani, or Nissani, however you pronounce it, is back at Williams as their backup driver. So hoping, you don't want to wish anybody injury or anything like that, but if somebody at Williams gets hurt, we get to have another Jew on the grid. So 2 out of the 20 F1 drivers would be Jewish, and that would be pretty darn cool.
Yeah. Denny Avdia and the Washington Wizards may make the NBA playoffs. Denny's looking to be the first Israeli in the NBA playoffs. If they make it, something we'll keep in mind as we ran spring.
I think, we could always talk about baseball, but I think we're going to take a pause in some Marvin Miller solidarity here and wait till the lawyers and the agents have settled everything before we really get too excited about baseball.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention, we don't know the date on this yet, but there's a Jewish sports media thing that I want to point out, which is that the Barry Levinson directed film, The Survivor, about Harry Haft, an Auschwitz survivor who, was forced to box in Auschwitz and, lived to tell the tale. That's starring Ben Foster, a Jewish actor. It premiered at TIFF last year, and it was bought by HBO Max. So I think that's something we'll see hopefully in the next few months. And Barry Levinson obviously directed one of the greatest sports movies of all time, in The Natural. This should be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I think that's a fun story to watch, see if there's a good reaction to that.
Absolutely. I think Ben Foster is a great example of whatever the opposite of our Mike Jacobs All-Star is. Somebody who doesn't seem Jewish but is definitely Jewish would be Ben Foster, as well as his wife Laura Prepon of Orange is the New Black and That 70s Show fame. Both, they're not athletes, but they are Jewish, even though they seem very not Jewish. So if we ever have Ben on the show to talk about his role as Harry Haft, I'm going to have to tell him that.
I think it might be a Diana Agron All-Star. After the actress who is from Savannah and blonde and doesn't have a particularly Jewish name, and I think that she's the surprise Jew.
Diana Agron All-Star is very, very good. Paul Rudd All-Star would be another one.
Paul Rudd, yeah, maybe. Anyways, I think we should leave it there for now. As always, you can find us at the Canadian Jewish News, the CJN.ca, where our podcasts are posted. We're hoping to have an article out shortly about the greatest Jewish athlete of all time, following up on the podcast we did a few months ago. You can follow us on Facebook there at the CJN Lounge, and also on Twitter at Menschwarmers. Please like, subscribe, review to our podcast wherever you're getting it.
And stay tuned for upcoming Olympic coverage, and it's great to be back.